morning, lads. Cup of tea. Welcome to a 2025-26 Premier League prediction video. Yes, tomorrow kicks off a new season, and our defending champs, Liverpool, will take on Bournemouth tomorrow. So cannot wait to see that match going. But I'm predicting the 2025-26 Premier League season. We'll start at the bottom. Now, I don't know some of these players, so I do apologize if I don't mention any of these, their best player, the transfer players who are joining these new clubs. So my apologies. Let's just grab a cup of tea and let's get to it. So in 20th place, from 20th, 19, and 18, those are the clubs that will get relegated to the championship. So at 20th place, I got Burnley. Not a surprise for me, but for those who are, no surprise, yes. Burnley, who had a tremendous season last year, 100 points in the championship. But this is the Premier League. Things have a lot of change, of course. Now, they have a new manager in Scott Parker entering his second year as Burnley manager. And their big signing was Kyle Walker, who did play with Manchester City. And now he comes in as their right back for Burnley. Now, could they survive in the Premier League? Maybe. But my only issue is their manager, who, if you remember, Scott Parker coached Bournemouth, and they lost 9-0 to Liverpool. That was 2-3 years ago. And now he's back in the Premier League coaching Burnley. And I think they'll go back to the championship. At 19, this is where a lot of y'all would go, you might be out of your mind. I have Brentford at 19. They have a new coach in Keith Andrews. Tough loss with Thomas Frank, of course. They did lose Brian Mbeumo, but the only question is, will Wissa, who has been linked to Newcastle, going to be in this main squad? And we've been told for match day one that he is not going to be in match day one against Nottingham Forest. So that's a tough loss, but we'll see where this goes right now. But their signings, yes, the Irish had a lot of work. So they did make a big move to bring in Jordan Henderson out of Ajax, who left Ajax and became a free agent and joined Brentford. The question is, can Keith Andrews succeed Brentford in what Thomas Frank did for 7 years? I don't think so. I think they're going back to the championship. And in 18, I have Wolves. So yes, that means I have Sunderland and Leeds surviving. And I'll get to those two of why. But for Wolves, they lost a bunch of pieces. Matheus Cunha, their striker, is gone. He's now in Manchester United. They lost their best right back, who's now in Manchester City. And they didn't make significant moves. And my only question is, can Victor Pereira bring that magic from last season again to Wolves? I don't think so. And with the Premier League getting even tighter and tougher, I think this could be the year that Wolves will go back to the championship for the first time since their promotion to the Premier League back in, I think, 2017, 16 years. We'll see. But let me talk about Sunderland at 17. I think they're going to have to survive like this much if they're going to stay in the Premier League. I love their manager. I love what they brought in the transfer window. Of course, granted, Xhaka is in the mix. The question is, can this young side, the Black Cats, get through the Premier League's giants? We know they're going to be playing, of course, Liverpool, Arsenal, City, Chelsea, United, Villa, Newcastle, etc. But could they get some big wins? For example, maybe they get a huge win against their home opener against West Ham. That would be a big win. But what would be a milestone victory? Maybe against Crystal Palace. That's where I am. But I think I'm looking forward this year for Sunderland, and as well as Leeds United. Now, as of recorded, they did sign Donovan Calvert-Lewin, who was a free agent after leaving with Everton. He is now their new striker. They did bring in Sean Longstaff as the midfield, but there are questions on Daniel Farke. Now, Daniel Farke, the German coach, has been in the Premier League before when he was at Norwich, and he had some struggles there. But this is Leeds United. I feel this is going to be the most confident prediction here. Leeds United at 16. At 15, I got West Ham. I think we're going to get to see the struggles of West Ham right now. Now, no Antonio, of course, who had a car accident in the 6 or 8 months ago, so he's not there. But they did bring in free agent and former Newcastle striker Colin Wilson. So we'll see if he can be a good striker there. But they did lose Mohamed Kudus, who's now in Tottenham. My question for this one is, can West Ham get back to their roots? And the answer for me is maybe. I mean, I could think of Graham Potter, but here's my money, and I can bet on this one right now. I will bet before or after Christmas, Graham Potter will be sacked as West Ham manager. I'm putting that prediction right now in this video. At 14, I got Fulham. I think Fulham, listen, I know last year they were trying to be conversation of Europe, but now I feel like we're going to see the fallout of Fulham to maybe going back to the championship maybe in the next 2 years. But Marco Silva needs to have some big work, and they still have time for the transfer window. Now, we have 18 days or 17 days until the transfer window is closed. So Fulham could still make some signings, but they need to make a signing that can turn Fulham around if they're going to be a European contenders for next season. At 13, I got Bournemouth. I think Bournemouth, main question is, what is their defense going to look like after losing their best players? Of course, Malius Kurtze is now with Liverpool. Dennis Hodgson left to go to Real Madrid. And they did lose another center back who's now in PSG. So the pressure's now to Areola, their manager for Bournemouth. Will they go to top 10? I don't know. I think they can do it. But for right now, I got them at 13. At 12, I got Everton. They are getting a new stadium. But my main question is, can their ceiling go higher with David Moyes as their manager? And I think they could. They brought some good signings. Of course, they brought in Jack Grealish on a loan. So we'll see if he is going to be a factor for Everton's front. But we'll see where this goes for David Moyes. And I love their new stadium. So kudos to the Toughies. At 11, outside of the top 10, I got Crystal Palace. After winning the Supporters' Shield on Sunday, or I believe it was on Tuesday, whenever it was, they beat Liverpool. They won their second silverware. Congratulations, Crystal Palace. Unfortunately, they have to play in the Europa Conference after the appeal from Crystal Palace for them to go to the Europa League was denied by the UEFA, which means Crystal Palace plays at the Europa Conference. But they didn't make a lot of signings. Now, that could still change either way. But their ceiling could be maybe higher, maybe top 10. If they can get some players from the transfer window, maybe we could see a different side of Crystal Palace that we haven't seen. Now, Oliver Glasner has just won 2 trophies in Crystal Palace. So we'll see if they can win a 3rd trophy under Oliver Glasner. At 10, I have Nottingham Forest. Last year was a surprise. Nobody expected them to get to Europe. Now they get their chance in Europe for the first time in 3 or 2 decades. But what a story for the club that was going to get relegated to getting to Europe, and they will be playing in the Europa League. I love their signings. Now, I know they lost Anthony Elanga, who is gone, but they brought in someone from Bologna. Plus, they brought in Igor, a new striker in Jesus from Bologna. Now, Chris Wood is getting older, so we'll see if he is going to have to score goals for this club. But over to that, my question is, can they go to the next step? And that is Premier League champions. They were so close to get to Champions League glory, and now could they get that step this season to Champions League football? At ninth place, I got Tottenham Hotspurs. Now, they have a new manager in Thomas Frank, and yesterday they had a great performance against PSG despite the loss. Mohamed Kudus, big signing. They did, however, lose Heung-min Son and James Maddison, which James Maddison is injured with an ACL injury. See how long he'll be gone. But I do love this Spurs club. This is a club that last year they were in the 16th spot. We're getting closer to relegation. They fired Postecoglou after just winning the Europa League. Now here comes Thomas Frank, and he is leading a Spurs team to this year's Champions League. So we'll see what kind of side Tottenham is, but I think they are going to be in that top 10. At number 8, ahead of Tottenham, I have Manchester United. And their signings, remarkable. Benjamin Sesko, Brian Mbeumo, Matheus Cunha. Those are the 3 big signings that Ruben Amorim is building in Manchester United. The question is, can they get back to Europe? Now, I know they missed that opportunity in the UEFA Europa League final, which they lost to Tottenham. But if they're getting back to Europe, they have to climb up to the Champions League spot, the Europa League spot, or they have to win the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup if they're going to get to Europe. So that is where I am for Manchester United. Number 7, I have Brighton. I think the Seagulls are soaring high, and maybe this could be their year to get back to Europe after 2-year absence of Europe. But Fabian Hürzeler, listen, I know they lose Joao Pedro, but he will still coach this Brighton team no matter the situation in Brighton. So I love where this club is going at number 7. At number 6, and according to right now, I have Newcastle. Now, Alexander Isak, not in this club as of right now. They did sign Anthony Alagna, Aaron Ramsdale on loan from Southampton, and they just confirmed that they have agreed to terms to sign Jacob Ramsey from Aston Villa, and he is expected to have a medical as of this recorded. So that's a huge signing for them, and they will hope to make more signings before their new season begins, as well as the Champions League. So they will have to focus that as well. At 5th place, I have Aston Villa. I think Villa will get back in the Champions League this year. Now, they will be playing the Europa League after failing to, lost to Manchester United in the final countdown. Tough one. But listen, Unai Emery is going to get this club back to the Champions League, no matter what the circumstance. I got Villa at 5th place. Number 4, I got Chelsea, the world champions of the Club World Cup champs. My question is the Club World Cup giving the motivation to Chelsea? I think it is. Their signings are big. Liam Delap, they brought in Joao Pedro in the mix. Now, they had to sell some of the players, of course, to get some low payments. But I think next year Chelsea will win the Premier League next year if Enzo Maresca and his club get a good year. 3rd place, I have Manchester City. I think this is going to be, and this is where I am. You cannot bet Pep Guardiola, but I have issues with this club. They do lose Kevin De Bruyne. He's gone, but Rodri is coming back healthy and strong. They did make some signings, of course, during the transfer window. My only question is, can they get through Arsenal and Liverpool? Only to find out. And I think Erling Haaland will win the Golden Boot. At second place, I have Arsenal, which means Liverpool will be my Premier League champions, and we'll get to them in a moment. Arsenal, I have them going to second place yet again for a fourth year in a row. The reason why is, can they even the games with Liverpool? Now, they have their new center forward in Viktor Gyökeres, who I'm excited. Because yes, the mask is coming to the Premier League. But I have some questions on their at the front forwards. But can they even the games with Man City, Chelsea, Spurs, United, and Liverpool if they're going to win the Prem? And I got Liverpool winning it back-to-back. There's no question. This is the best team right now after making big moves. Fabian Wirtz, Jeremiah Formungo, 2 Leverkusens coming here. Hugo Teki, their new striker going from Frankfurt to Liverpool. Love their moves. What On the Slot is building. And yes, I believe that Liverpool will hoist that trophy. And they will do it for Diogo Jota. Yes, the man who has won a lot of trophies with Liverpool and in Portugal National League. And yes, I feel like if they win this year's Premier League, this has to be for Diogo Jota. That is it for my Premier League prediction video. Hello there. If you have not seen my other videos, go check them out on my channel. Of course, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell for more sports news.